everyone. We're very excited today to be welcoming a very personal inspiration of mine. Someone who has started in acting, transitioned into becoming one of the most successful businesswomen and entrepreneurs in the US, Oscar Award winner, Gwyneth Paltrow. Please everyone, join me in welcoming Gwyneth Paltrow on stage.
Hello, good evening. Hi, Gwyneth. Hi, thank you.
It's very exciting to have you join us here in Jeddah at the Red Sea International Film Festival.
Thank you.
As I was saying, truly an inspiration to so many people. I wouldn't just say women, I would say you're an inspiration to women, men, younger generation, older generation. Incredible career. You started out as an actress, won several awards, Oscars, Emmys, SAGs, Golden Globes, I mean, you name it. And then made a very bold decision to transfer and transition into a business. However, given that it's a film festival, I'd like to first start by discussing your film career. Why did you choose film?
Well, my mother is an actress, and I grew up, she did mostly theater. And so I grew up as a little girl watching her rehearse plays and running around the theater. And, my mother, I think she would even say in life she always felt a bit insecure. But when she was on stage, she was the most powerful, integrated force of nature that I had ever seen. And so I wanted to be that. I wanted to do what she did, and I thought that the way that a woman gets agency and power like that is to be an actress. So I followed in her footsteps.
That's incredible. So it was a little girl wanting to become her mother. What was your first act, and how did you get into it?
So actually, I did a lot in school, as a lot of us do. And I always told my parents, I want to be an actress, I want to be an actress. And they said, no, over our dead body, we never will allow it. We never want you to do it. And one day, I was 17 years old. I went to private school in New York City and had a uniform. And I was sitting in the cafe at the corner during one of my free periods. I hate to say smoking a cigarette, because that's what we did back then, in the 90s. And a casting agent came up to me and said, hi, I'm casting a movie about a girl, whose family was on the Upper East Side. Would you come and audition? So without telling my parents, I snuck to the audition. And then I did pretty well, I guess, and I got a call back. And then I think they figured out from my last name who my mother was, and they called my mother. And I came home from school, and I remember she was had this funny look on her face that I had never seen before. She was half cross and half really proud that I had done well at the audition. And so she let me go back and do the callback. I didn't get that part, but from then on, I did a summer theater, and then somebody saw me, and it just was a slow build until I got my first kind of meaningful film role. I think I was 19.
And Gwyneth, what would you say was your most defining moment in your acting career? I mean, we all fell in love with you in Shakespeare in Love, of course, but you've had so many different roles, playing so many different characters in different genres, be it Proof, Shakespeare in Love, Two Lovers, I mean, the list goes on. What would you be your turning point, or the character that is still living with you today?
That's a good question. I had such great fortune to be able to play so many of these amazing roles, like you just said. I think, a film like The Royal Tenenbaums, which really has stayed with people. My character has stayed. It's really fun to see a character that you put into the world still capture the imagination of audiences, you know, and my daughter's friends watch it and love it. You know, it's all these years later, it's very fun.
Now, of course, as a female actress, how did you navigate the film industry? And especially given that you've started at such a young age, behind your parents' back at the beginning, at 19, went to your first casting, but then obviously you went on to bigger roles, more defining roles. Did you think it was more difficult for you as a woman, and would you have had it easier if you weren't?
You know, it's funny, when I look back throughout history, I always think that women artists have always been allowed a bit more latitude than in other professions, you know? It was like, if you think of Sarah Bernhardt or the silent film stars, like it is an area where women had a sort of parity with men from the very beginning. In fact, you know, a lot of the first real movie stars were women. And so I think there's always been sort of a special place for women all throughout. You know, you think of Grace Kelly, or you think of Elizabeth Taylor, and these women who had incredible power in an industry and could make big creative decisions. But at the same time, you know, there is and has been a side of Hollywood that's been a bit darker and more exploitative of young women. Luckily, I, you know, managed to avoid most of that. And I think it helped that my parents were established in the industry and had industry friends. I think I was privileged in that way, that I think I was protected.
And now, of course, as an experienced actress and an Oscar winner and a businesswoman, what would you do differently?
You know, I think I didn't believe in myself enough when I was doing it. And I think on some level, I didn't feel like I deserved success. And that was a self-worth question. And so sometimes I look back and think I could have harnessed the momentum better. I could have made better choices, you know, with working with certain directors that I said no to when I should have said yes, or said yes to when I should have said no. And I think it came from a place of not necessarily feeling like, wow, I really deserve this career. So I wish I could go back and tell myself, you know, we're all always exactly where we're supposed to be, always, in health and in wealth and in disaster and mistake. It's like we're always right where we are supposed to be in order to learn those lessons, and I wish I had embraced it a little bit more.
Speaking of directors and, you know, your younger self, who would you say was your best director, and who would you want to work with today? And any mentors that you've had throughout your acting career?
Let's see. Well,
David Fincher.
who did you say?
David Fincher.
David Fincher, thank you. David Fincher. Okay, here's my answer. You know, I've been so lucky. I was in David Fincher's first motion picture. I was in Paul Thomas Anderson's first one, which was great. I loved working with Wes. I loved working with Anthony Minghella on The Talented Mr. Ripley. I mean, I was very lucky. I worked with a great group of people. Yes, Alfonso Cuarón.
I was asking Gwyneth for her favorite directors.
Oh, and mentors, sorry I didn't answer that. I think from an acting perspective, I really learned from the people that I filmed with along the way, watching how they interpreted material, how everybody had a different style. You know, I did a really, really terrible movie with Jessica Lange that is just shit. And, but I learned, I can't believe you know that. But I learned so much from watching her. She had such an interesting style and technique that she had developed over all these years. And so people like that, like I think about these, you know, amazing people that I got to work with and see all the different ways, and then kind of made my own technique as I went along.
Gwyneth, at the Red Sea Film Foundation, we are championing several causes, be it inclusivity, diversity, female empowerment. We, of course, have our Women in Cinema initiative, which champions women across the world in film, behind and in front of the camera. What's your take on the power of storytelling in impacting these various causes, or just these themes? Do you think it simply highlights it, or it can play a bigger role? And Goop does that as well, but I'll translate it into that.
Well, I think it changes culture. I mean, you know, movies and TV are a very safe place for people to experience new ideas, to be challenged intellectually, to be challenged about what their boundaries are, to be challenged about the status quo, because it's a movie, it's TV, so it's not really happening, but you can be inspired to be really opened up. And so the profundity of having stories, you know, women's stories and diverse stories, underrepresented people being able to share their stories, it changes culture, it changes the world, it changes how we relate to one another. And I think it's absolutely critical, and it's so wonderful that you're focused on that here. And I'm very glad that more globally people are really understanding that, you know, the more diverse the experiences that are elucidated on screen, the better off we all are.
What's your take on the future of film?
Wow, I mean, we're really in such a bizarre moment. You know, I think it's going to change dramatically, and I think the way that we film movies are going to change dramatically, and I think stunts are going to change dramatically, and, you know, animation is going to change, AI is going to change everything. And I think there will always be independent cinema. You know, there will always be artists who want to grab a Super 8 camera and put a story on film. But I think kind of big movie studio filmmaking the way we know it over the next 10 years is going to look nothing like it does now.
Absolutely, and I think this is very similar to the conversations that we've been having here with young filmmakers from different parts of the world, is that we need to be able to embrace AI and embrace this technology. I know that a lot of people tend to fear it more than anything else, thinking that it would replace the human capability. However, creativity can never be replaced. That element will survive if we learn how to embrace this technology. Of course, there are certain jobs that will be changed, but not necessarily completely gone. But it's, I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how the younger generation especially can continue not to give up. Of course, as you said, the studios, the more established ones, will have to change their business models and would have to change how they go about it. Budgets are not going to be the same. You're not going to see the $100 million budgets. But we saw a film a few days ago that was $2 million that could outperform any global blockbuster. Is it the story? Is it the CGIs? Is it the production? Is it the name that opens the credits? What's the secret recipe? What's your advice to young filmmakers here today?
I mean, look, the formats are going to change, the way things are made, you know, absolutely are going to change. But I think, you know, on the one hand, I worry because, you know, my children are the first truly digitally native generation, and they are so interlinked with their phone and all the input all day long. And I worry about what happens to creativity when you're not bored in a car, and you're not daydreaming out the window, and you're not looking for something to do, and you don't know where your friends are, so you're kind of going to the mall and you're riding your bike. You know, I worry about what is going to germinate that inner life for this generation, because stories come from that. Stories also come from pain, and all of us always trying to understand why we're here. I think that will persist no matter what technology changes to happen. I think there will always we will always need artists to help us translate our feelings and help us understand them and understand these big ideas and where we're going.
Transitioning from acting to Goop. Goop celebrates its 15th anniversary this year, so congratulations on all the success. In 2008, you established Goop. It started out as a newsletter and now has become an incredible resource of content across beauty, fashion, food, travel, wellness. You've expanded into e-commerce, you've expanded into products. I'd like to go back to the very beginning of it. How did you get the idea to start Goop? And I heard a very interesting interview of yours where you said why you named it Goop. And I want to know, do you think that you're there now? Are you
I'm
competing with the O's?
No, I'm not there yet. So, as we were talking about before, I had this incredible film career. I was so lucky. But also, I was really following in my mother's footsteps. I had had all of this luck and gone from one movie to the next. And then I had my daughter, and I really stopped short in my tracks and just thought, it was the first time I stopped since I'd started, and I had had this sort of 10 dizzying years of acting back to back. And it was the first time I stopped and I gave myself permission to ask myself, is this it? Is this what I'm here for? Is this, and I don't know, is it? And it was the first time I kind of even let myself entertain the idea that maybe I was interested in something else. But then that was very hard to face as well, because I was me and I had this career, and who did I think I was to maybe focus on something else? But the truth is, I've always been most motivated by connecting people to good things, things that will, it's like, if you ask me, oh, where should I go when I go to LA? Like, I love getting my pen and making you a list, And have always been that person for my friends, that resource. And when I started thinking about Goop, it was kind of early in the internet days, and I just thought, gosh, it would be so interesting to try something else.
This was before social media.
Yes, this is before social media. And so I just sort of took a chance and did it, and people were really surprised and really didn't understand what I was doing. But, I really believe that as women, we have different chapters. We really do. We have very different chapters, and they're defined by very different things, and we're very different people in all those chapters. And it's much different to be, a young, working, young woman and being a grandmother, and imagining the lifetimes that transpire for women between those times. And I thought, I want a new chapter. I want to try something different. And I'm really happy I did, because I've learned so much through this process of growing this company and working with this team and all of the challenges, and whether it be inventory management or Excel or all the things I never thought in a million years I would have to learn how to do, how to read a P&L. And it's been so thrilling to know myself in a different way and to build this business and to still do what I really love to do. And I think, in a way, entrepreneurship and acting are very similar. It's similar to be an artist and an entrepreneur. It's the same kind of energy behind it. So, yeah, I went with my instinct.
I think, Gwyneth, you touched upon so many challenges, maybe, or just hurdles that you faced, that so many women face across the world. As a actress transitioning into a businesswoman's role, and not necessarily an actress, anyone, a working mother or stay-at-home mom, deciding that after having children and they've grown up, now I want to pursue a career, I want to feel self-fulfilled. But there's always a sense of doubt. There's always a sense of, can they do it? Can she do it? Can she read a P&L? Will she be able to run a business? Will she be able to run a team? Are her hormones going to get in the way? So how did you overcome all of that? And what challenges did you face?
Well, I think I had quite a bit of resistance because not only was I a woman, but I was an actress and I didn't go to business school. I didn't even finish college. And here I was, trying to create a business plan and convince people to give me, investment, and it was very hard. Nobody really wanted to invest at first, and it was only when I found venture capitalists that had kind of seen firsthand the impact of Goop, or maybe their wives really understood, that they said, okay, we'll give you a little bit of money and we'll see if you can grow this thing. But there was a lot of prejudice, a lot of prejudging me for being all these other things, which is totally understandable too, by the way. I mean, I was going blindly into this new thing, and I did very much have to learn on the job, and cultivate that self-belief, because, I think, to your point, we as women, we culturally, in all over the world, we are always feeling like, I think the context is still there, that we're maybe not quite as up to the job as a man. So it's something that I fight against, because I know it's not true, and I work with the most amazing women, and usually they're smarter than the men.
Have you heard that, everyone? I couldn't agree more, and I think there's a lot to learn from your journey and how you transitioned, and it's truly inspirational to so many women and men around the world, and especially those who are starting something completely different and completely new, and going out and raising funds and convincing investors. But now Goop is at 170 employees.
More now.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
What's next for Goop?
Well, I think, we still have a lot of growth to do in the US. I'm very excited about where we are. We're at this really interesting inflection point. We just started this very cool food delivery business, which is doing incredibly well. And I have big aspirations to take it to other countries, I'd love to bring it to the Middle East. I'd love to bring it to Europe. I'd love to bring it to South America. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we have a lot of expansion to do, and hopefully we'll be able to execute.
I can't help but see a lot of similarities between Goop and the social impact of film. You're breaking taboos, you're creating connections, and as you've said earlier, you wanted to become a resource to inform and to then naturally empower as well. Was this done on purpose, or was it on coincidence? And do you think that that could be the reason behind, one of the reasons behind the success?
I think so. I think, I was very lucky to be raised in the family that I was raised in, where, I was given a lot of opportunity to learn, to study, to explore. I grew up in New York City. I went to an incredible school, which was all girls, which just was so empowering, intellectually stimulating, and, a real sisterhood there, and grew up being able to go to museums and kind of explore and balance both hemispheres of my brain. And I've always felt that, there's something in me that just wants to share and wants to change the world. And that might be naive, and it might be silly, but I've always felt like that from when I was a little girl, like that I wanted to impact positively, and also maybe ruffle a few feathers, and challenge people to existing paradigms, and see if we could, dismantle a few systems along the way, and so to be able to do that at Goop and kind of create this flywheel of content, which helps move culture, which helps create context, which, for the products, it's very cool. It's kind of, it's a business model that, I kind of don't see in a lot of other places work well. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to do that, and I just hope that we'll, be able to continue.
Gwyneth, I also heard you say that you've had various mentors, maybe, or advising you through the establishment of Goop. And of course, this kind of combination of film and a businesswoman, and then of course all of the lessons that you've learned, everything that you've brought into Goop from the film industry. But you have also had the humility to seek advice, which is something that a lot of people don't do. A lot of people are scared to say, I need help with a movie, or I need help with a new business, or I need advice to set something up, or how do I go about this? Both from your acting career and from Goop, what would you say was the most beneficial advice that you've had, and from whom?
It's a good question. I was just thinking back as you were talking about, when I was young, maybe because I was so young when I was acting, I just sort of was brave and was kind of going through that career with probably not as much humility, and then I got to starting to build Goop and just realized I didn't know anything. And I remember, in business meetings and Googling under the table, all the acronyms for e-commerce. And I realized asking questions does not make you look stupid. Just because you don't know the answer to something does not mean that you're not intelligent. It just means you haven't learned it yet. And so I made a promise to myself that I don't care and I'm gonna ask. And once I started asking questions, it cut the learning time down so much because I wasn't trying to figure it out. And that was a great piece of advice that I got from a friend. I've really leveraged mentors. I have people that I will call for a specific problem. And I really encourage everybody, especially when you're starting, be brave, send a cold email. I've done that a number of times where I've sent an email to, a captain of e-commerce to say, can you help, can I sit with you for an hour? Can you talk to me? It's the best way to learn, truly. And so I think you're right. Just be humble, admit you don't know it, ask the question, and learn.
I sense that you're... I sense that from what you're saying, that you're on a journey of self-discovery. Or maybe this journey of self-discovery has led you to the point of where you are today, of this incredible success, both as an actress and as a businesswoman. And I think I heard you say once that you want to nourish what is real. So through Goop, were you really nourishing yourself as well?
Well, that's a complex question to answer because there are some days that I'm working so hard and have so much stress that no, I'm definitely not nourishing myself. But I think what I meant by that in the early days was really our inner essence is what is the most important thing to nourish. Really connecting with yourself, befriending yourself, honoring yourself. That fosters such great connections with the other stuff that's real. You make choices that are in integrity. You spend time with the people that you love. And I do think that I've been on a huge journey of self-discovery, and nothing accelerated it quite like this past 15 years with Goop. Having to be so honest with myself about who I actually was versus who I was trying to be and who I wanted to be, and finally, coming to the point where I really am trying to accept all of the aspects of myself and really listen to all of those parts of myself and then move from there in the most authentic way I can.
Gwyneth, you're a mother of two. As we've now discussed, you're a successful businesswoman. You're an actress as well. A good friend once told me, and you've just mentioned it, a good friend once told me that, entering my new job, which is, managing 2,000 something employees, I'm gonna have two new friends in my life. And these are stress and anxiety. And I'm gonna have to learn how to live with them and adapt to it. And how do you cope? And how do you balance your own health, wellness, and personal fulfillment? Especially that this is something that is one of your missions through Goop.
And stress is real. I mean, stress, shoots your cortisol up, it messes with your hormones. It's you know, there's lots of studies that correlate stress with disease. It's really not a good thing, and I'm still trying to figure it out as well. I mean, I have stress and anxiety more often than I would like to admit. I think when you care so much about what you're doing and you're so public, like you here, being, you know, this amazing woman running this publicly traded company, like you have, not only do you have all the work responsibility, but you have the responsibility of being this woman, and so, you know, it's an extra amount of pressure to put on yourself about not wanting to fail, not being able to make a mistake. And so I think it compounds, and it's very hard to be a woman CEO, I think, for you, for me, for all of our colleagues. I have found it's really important for me to do the things that restore me. They're small. I meditate every morning. I exercise every morning. I need to be with my kids and my husband. It's like fills my soul back up. I need to take a bath at the end of the day. And I try to also change a little bit how I relate to the stress, because what I've noticed recently is something will happen, you know, even nothing that's that big of a deal, but my nervous system reacts like it's a huge crisis. So that's what I'm trying to explore right now. Like, what are the ways to not have your nervous system fire off like that? When I find the answers, I'll call you. Please.
And I think, you know, given that we get a lot of these tips, and I personally get a lot of these tips from Goop, do you think that, you know, Goop is able to stay culturally relevant to all of these new trends? Given that you...
I'm so old.
No, not at all. But you speak to different age segmentations, and you cater to Apple as needs and dreams and aspirations, and you also cater to minds, and you cater to everyone here. But how do you stay true to that, and how do you keep up with these trends? And especially given that it's very much your voice.
Well, I have a great team. I think that my team is also wellness obsessed. And so they are always like ear to the ground, trying to understand what's new, what's coming. Is it worth writing about? Is it worth talking about? You know, they go and try a lot of things, as do I. But I do think that, you know, it's one of my executive coach says, you know, it's in my zone. You have a zone of genius, you have a zone of excellence, you have a zone of whatever's less good than, you know, goodness, greatness. And I think in my zone of genius is being able to feel where things are going to go culturally.
Well, Gwyneth, thank you for all of these insights. And thank you for truly being an inspiration to so many. And being an inspiration to me personally, and also to a lot of my colleagues who are big fans
Thank you.
and religiously. You know, I think you've said once that the reason behind success and true success is staying true to yourself. And we've seen you stay true to yourself, be it through your acting career or through Goop from the very beginning and 15 years later. But the conversation is not done. I would like to now open it up to the audience. I know everyone is so excited to have Gwyneth here. So if we can please pass on the mic. There's one right there. I see several hands up. Here, we can start over here.
Hey Gwyneth, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm also from LA, so I can relate to a lot of things you're saying. I actually watched your show on Netflix like 2020 in the pandemic. I was like bored and I wanted to watch something about wellness. And I hadn't seen any of your movies, but I had heard of your name, of course, at that time. So, and I started this like my wellness journey at that time, like watching some of the episodes and just getting into like different things and just being open. And what I observed at that time was that that show kind of gave this idea of being openness to some things beyond science and like what we're taught our whole lives about like what is good and bad for us in a very binary form. And I think you kind of pioneered that culture in LA specifically, you know. it's nice to like, I mean, wellness is an industry all across the globe, but specifically in LA and like in the US, I think you did pioneer that. And what I observe is like your openness to question things in a really unique way, and you know, to do away with everything that you've learned over time. Like you're open to unlearning, you know? So with Goop specifically, would there be a time that you would be open to leaving this platform and just, you know, doing something else completely new?
We don't want her to leave just yet.
You know, just like completely like starting something else, because you did win an Oscar and you were an established actress, and I'm not gonna say you like completely got rid of your career, but you started something brand new. So is Goop something that you found your footing in, or is there something else beyond Goop for you?
Thank you, and thank you for your observations. You know, for the foreseeable future, I'm at Goop. I have a lot of work to do there, a lot of growth to achieve. But again, I have no idea what my next chapter is going to bring. And to your point, I'm so open. I have no fixed ideas. I want to learn and unlearn all the time, as you said. So I'm very open to what the universe might bring me in my next chapter. I have no idea what that might be.
Did it bring you back into acting?
I mean, I never say never. I said that to you earlier. You know, I'm for right now, I'm really happy and busy doing what I'm doing. But again, you can never know what the future will hold. And if one of my best friends, you know, if I wasn't running Goop and one of my best friends said, please come and do this or something, maybe I would consider.
Another question? Over there?
Thank you so much. I don't have a specific question. I just want to welcome you here in Jeddah.
Thank you.
I'm from generation where the movie theater and cinema was not exist, and we were traveling to see movie to other countries. So having you here today, so we have now film festival and we have cinema theaters and we have superstars coming to our country. It's very and like idol like you, and all the words that you and the encouragement that you gave us today. So I'm just happy to be here with this festival, and also to have like celebrity stars with us. And thank you so much.
First, Gwyneth, as you know, as we were discussing backstage, cinema was introduced after a 35-year ban. So this is a very exciting time for us, and a very exciting time for all the youth to be able to watch the films that they love and to meet the stars that they grew up watching, and to be able to have that direct interaction with them. Next question.
There are a lot of questions over here. I don't know.
Should we go to the other side?
Yes.
Over here?
Do you have a microphone?
Yes, she's got one.
Hi, Ms. Paltrow. Thank you so much for coming to Jeddah. It's really wonderful. I was 8 years old when the first Iron Man came out, and that franchise inspired me to become a director. I love those movies so much, all the Avengers. Just a fun question. Have your kids watched all the Marvel movies, and if so, what do they think?
My kids do not like to watch me in movies. They think it's really weird. Anytime my son has seen the 3 Iron Mans, but if he were sitting here, he would say, like, it's just weird. I don't like her like that. I like her at the dinner table. So they're not big fans, no.
They like you as mom.
Yeah.
Also, the scene in Endgame made me cry so much, so you were really amazing in that movie.
Thank
all
you.
of them.
Thank you.
I'll take a few more questions. The gentleman behind? Yes. Right behind.
Gwyneth, it's my pleasure to welcome you in Jeddah. I'm a great fan. My journey with your magical screen started with Shakespeare in Love. can you kindly enlighten us with your experience in Shakespeare in Love, in classic movie like this one, like Emma? How was it? How was the experience itself?
It was wonderful. You know, it was great to go to England and make films over there. I ended up making so many films in London. Emma was the first one, and then Sliding Doors and Shakespeare in Love, and I don't know, I think like 8 movies I did over there. So I loved being in the UK, and then I ended up marrying an English guy and living there for a long time, and it was a beautiful time in my career.
Another question? Yes.
So my name is Amro. I'm a Saudi actor. Thank you very much for coming here. We love you so much.
Oh, thank you.
My question is about we are as a young filmmakers from Saudi Arabia. What is your message or your advice to the new generation? And because you're an inspiration to us.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much. I think you just have to tell your truest stories. You know, what are the stories that will hurt you to stay inside, you know, that you have to tell. And I always think that the most interesting art comes from that place.
We'll take 2 more questions. Yes, the lady? Yes, we have a lady.
Hi, Gwen. I'm like a huge Marvel fan, so I wanted to ask how it was working in Iron Man, and I loved your character Pepper. Like, I've loved Pepper since I was really little, so I wanted to ask, like, how was it working, you know, in Marvel?
Well, the first Iron Man that we did was very different from the rest because, you know, the studio didn't think it was going to be a big hit, and so they hired Jon Favreau to direct it, who was great, and they hired Robert Downey, who was unhireable at the time. His career was at, you know, a very low point. And then I remember they called me one day and said, oh, come do this thing with us. And I said, I'm not gonna be in a superhero movie. And they said, no, but it's gonna be like, it's gonna feel like doing an indie film. We're gonna have fun. And you know, you don't have to be in too much of the action part anyway. And so I thought, oh, okay. And we had such a good time. We improvised almost every scene of that movie. We would write it in the morning in John's trailer. And it was like doing an independent film. Then the movie was such a huge hit that then we didn't make them like that anymore. But it was fun. It was a fun ride. To be honest, I stopped watching them at some point. I've never seen Endgame. I've never seen any of these. I can't keep track of who's what. You know, it's a bit. But I probably should at some point.
One last question. Gwyneth, maybe you could choose.
Oh my God. This guy with his cameras had his hand up the whole time.
Hello. Yeah. Gwyneth, thank you for coming to Jeddah, for being part of Red Sea Film Festival. I would like to ask you about your thoughts about our beloved city, first and foremost. And secondly, is it really a challenge to be working in very diversified projects? I mean, we've seen you in the Royal Tenenbaums, Shakespeare in Love, and then you played a very important role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Tell us about it.
Well, to answer your first question, I'm very happy to be in Jeddah. I've never been to Saudi before, so this is an exciting trip for me.
And hopefully not your last one.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And so I haven't seen too much of the city yet, but hopefully I will. And you know, to answer your other question, I think when you are an actor, you just can go do your thing, and the context doesn't really matter, and the costume doesn't really matter. I think if you've really inhabited the character and you're really bringing it to life, It could be with a green screen, you know, you could be with an Iron Man mask on, or you could be on stage doing off-Broadway play. It's really all very much the same thing. And I've been lucky, to your point, to have such a diverse career. And I'm glad that the Marvel universe has been so impactful. I see you with your poster and your pen.
Well, I think, Gwyneth, from this conversation, we can tell that, or maybe the takeaway is that one of your most diverse careers or moves just yet has been Goop. Of course, after an incredible filming career and several awards. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.